What happens to the souls of those who suffer unspeakable horrors? Do they find peace, or do they remain, their tormented screams echoing through the decaying halls of America's forgotten asylums? This is Scary Stories Files. Across the United States, they stand as grim monuments to a dark past. Massive Gothic structures of brick and stone slowly crumbling into ruin. They were built with the promise of healing, with the idea of refuge for those struggling with mental illness. They were called asylums. In the mid-19th century, a new philosophy known as moral treatment took hold. The Kirkbride Plan promised sunlight, fresh air, and compassionate care in carefully designed institutions. It was meant to be a humane alternative to the jails and poorhouses where the mentally ill had once been hidden away. But that promise collapsed. Overcrowding, underfunding, and neglect transformed these places into warehouses of suffering. The word asylum became synonymous with terror. Thousands lived and died behind locked doors, their stories buried in unmarked grave and forgotten records. And some believe that kind of suffering doesn't simply disappear. They say it leaves something behind. Tonight, we are walking the haunted halls of America's most terrifying forgotten asylums, uncovering the real history that gave birth to their paranormal legends. These aren't just ghost stories. These are echoes of real human tragedy. We begin in Danvers, Massachusetts. Long before the asylum was built, the land itself carried a dark reputation. This was the same region haunted by the legacy of the Salem witch trials. When Danvers State Lunatic Asylum opened in 1878, it was a towering Gothic masterpiece meant to house around 600 patients. But by the mid-20th century, more than 2,000 desperate souls were crammed inside. Treatment became punishment. Patients endured electroshock therapy, solitary confinement, and straitjackets. And here, one of the most horrifying procedures in medical history became common practice: the prefrontal lobotomy. The ice-pick lobotomy was performed by driving a metal instrument through the eye socket and severing parts of the brain. Many patients were left broken, silent, or vegetative. Others never survived at all. Deaths went unnoticed. Abuse became routine. Fear ruled the halls. After the asylum closed in 1992, visitors began reporting glowing lights drifting through the cemetery, where hundreds were buried under numbered markers instead of names. Disembodied cries echoed through the ruins. Though parts of Danvers were demolished and turned into luxury apartments, the central structure remains, and many believe the spirits were never truly allowed to leave. From there, we move to the quiet countryside of East Bethany, New York. Rolling Hills Asylum was never just a hospital. It was a dumping ground for society's unwanted. The poor, the elderly, orphans, the disabled, and the mentally ill were all sent here to be forgotten. More than 1,700 people are believed to have died on this property. Visitors today report something far more disturbing than traditional ghosts. Dark human-shaped shadows move through the hallways. They stand in doorways. They watch. Rolling Hills is so infamous for these figures that investigators call it the Shadow Factory. One of the most well-known spirits is Roy, a man who suffered from gigantism and stood over 7 feet tall. His massive shadow is said to roam the male wing, heavy footsteps vibrating the floor as if he's still walking the halls. Some visitors leave Rolling Hills and report something far worse. They say something follows them home. Next, we arrive at one of the most tragic institutions in American history, Pennhurst State School and Hospital in Pennsylvania. Opened in 1908, Pennhurst was built under the philosophy of eugenics, the belief that certain people were unfit to exist in society. Children, immigrants, the disabled, and anyone deemed a problem were locked away. In 1968, a television investigation exposed the truth. Viewers saw children confined to metal cribs for years, patients unclothed, rocking endlessly, living in filth. Abuse was rampant. Care was non-existent. Pennhurst closed in 1987, but the suffering never faded. Today, investigators capture EVPs of children crying and laughing. Shadow figures lunge at visitors. People report being pushed, scratched, and choked by unseen hands. Pennhurst isn't haunted by imagination. It's haunted by memory. And finally, we come to the largest and perhaps most disturbing asylum of them all. The Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum in West Virginia. Built to house 250 patients, it eventually held more than 2,400. Patients slept in cages. Sanitation collapsed. Violence was constant. Lobotomies were common. Ice-cold hydrotherapy was used as punishment. Murders occurred inside these walls. For 130 years, this building absorbed pain. Today, it's considered one of the most haunted locations in the world. Visitors report hearing screams, growls, and threats captured on recordings. Doors shake violently. Shadows move independently. Some encounter the spirit of a little girl named Lily, while others face something far more aggressive in the maximum security wing. Trans-Allegheny doesn't feel abandoned. It feels occupied. What happened in these asylums wasn't a few isolated failures. It was a systemic collapse of humanity. Places built to heal became places of torment. And maybe that's what a ghost really is. Not a monster, but an echo, a life forgotten, a voice never heard, a pain so deep it refuses to be erased. The buildings may be empty, but the stories are not over. And the residents may never truly leave. If stories like this matter to you, make sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe to Scary Stories Files. Because the past is never as far away as we think, and sometimes it's still watching.